Hello everyone. This is for the part 2 of the Unit 1 test. This is the constructed response that goes along with the cold reads or the new passages that you saw on the test. This is a graded assignment and the instructions are as follows. Read the highlighted questions that follow the numbered reading passages, then choose one to use for this assignment. Read the passage for the question you've chosen, and then write a response based on the passage. Remember, you only need to write one response, and the passages are passages that you have already seen and read on the part 1 of your unit test, the multiple choice. They should be familiar to you, and after having them read to you in this read aloud, you'll then be able to make the best choice for your written response. Your total score on this part of the test will be out of 30 points, and there is a rubric available to you in your online course. The first passage option, Secret in Slovakia. After 17 hours of travel, we had finally made it. It was 10 o'clock at night, and we were in Slovakia, standing in front of Great Aunt Gertrude's house, which stood at the end of a long, narrow street and looked to be made of ancient stone. The wind came whistling through the trees that surrounded the house in a way that reminded me of an eerie fairy tale that my grandmother told me when I was a child. In the dark, with its front windows and double-arched doors, the house looked as if it were about to eat us. 2 days later, when we left, I would look at the house in the daylight and think it was very charming. Right then, I wanted nothing more than to find the inside much less frightening than the outside. I was in Slovakia with my mother and uncle to prepare Aunt Gertrude's house to be sold. 2 years ago, when she became increasingly frail, she had come to the United States to live out her days close to the only family she had, my mother, my uncle, and their families. I had seen Aunt Gertrude more in the past 2 years than I had ever before in my life, and she could be terrifying, often wearing a mean scowl on her deeply lined face. She never had children of her own and worked as a governess when she was young, and although those children had to be my parents' age by now, I still felt bad for them. My grandmother had come to the United States when she and Gertrude were in their 20s, and Aunt Gertrude rarely spoke about herself, so we knew very little about her adult life. Although I never felt particularly close to Aunt Gertrude, it was comforting to know she was close by in her last years. And now that she was gone, we were apparently going to discover the secret she had been keeping from all of us. I'll never forget the last moments before she died. She knew the end was near, and she kept, when she was saying her goodbyes to all of us, she turned to my mother, grasped her hand so tight that I saw surprise on my mother's face, and she said, "I'm so sorry. You'll find out all about it. I did what I thought was best. Forgive me." This was not the time to press Aunt Gertrude for details, and just a few minutes later, she died peacefully. Now we were at this house to gather her paperwork and retrieve some personal items that she had left behind. As we crossed the threshold, I realized that my wish about the inside of the house not being frightening would not be coming true. The furniture, all draped in sheets and lit only by the moonlight, looked like ghosts hovering in each room. It was so still we could hear each tick of the grandfather clock as we moved through the house. The 3 of us walked slowly and quietly down the wide hallway to the kitchen, as if we were afraid of waking someone. My uncle turned on a light switch as we walked into the kitchen, and the bulb instantly blew out, sending my mother and me into a momentary panic. We all composed ourselves and made our way to the library. Aunt Gertrude had directed us specifically to this room, so we could gather certain books and other items that she wanted to remain in the family. As we crept into the room, we all noticed it at once. On the desk, there was an old wooden box with a note on top in Aunt Gertrude's handwriting that read, "Forgive me." I had never asked my mother or uncle what they thought we might discover at Aunt Gertrude's house because I was certain they would not know. Aunt Gertrude had always been such a distant, shadowy figure even when she was living in the United States. Now we were about to find out what she had kept secret for years. My uncle opened the box and pulled out a stack of old papers. On the top was stationery that looked as if it were about 50 years old. The letterhead had a picture of a building with the words, Bratislava School for Girls. The second paper in the stack was a letter from Aunt Gertrude addressed to the family. In the letter, she explained that she had been bequeathed a large sum of money when she was a young woman by one of the families for whom she had worked. Aunt Gertrude had used it to open a school for orphan girls in the city where she had grown up. As he read the letter, my uncle paused at the end of almost every sentence. It was all so much to take in. Aunt Gertrude explained that she knew many orphans as a child growing up in the city, and when she was given the money, she immediately knew what she would do with it. The letter said her only fear was that the family would be angry with her for not sharing the money. We all looked at each other in disbelief. A woman we had all feared had sacrificed what could have been a luxurious life in order to help orphans in her homeland. And she worried that we would be angry about it? A few days later, we returned home with the surprising news about Aunt Gertrude. The news made me regret not knowing her better while she was alive, but at least our family now knows what kind of generous person Aunt Gertrude really was. If you select this reading passage, Secret in Slovakia, as your reading passage for the constructed response, the question that you will be addressing is in highlighted text here on the screen. Your prompt says, what is the effect of the author's use of foreshadowing in Secret in Slovakia? Use evidence or quotations directly from the text to support your answer. Your response should be one complete, fully developed and supported paragraph and must include 1 to 2 direct quotes from the story. Use the rubric to guide your work and ask questions if you have them. But again, if you choose passage 1, Secret in Slovakia, this is the prompt with which you will be working. Should you choose to use the second prompt, you will be using this passage, A Modern Love Letter. I am such a voracious reader that my mother has remarked, Isabella Sanchez, you'd read anything, including the dictionary. Of course, I've perused the occasional dictionary, but I much prefer the gripping suspense of mystery novels. And though I don't like to gloat, I must admit that I usually solve the mystery before the fictional detective synthesizes the clues into a plausible theory. Strolling home from the library with yet another satchel full of paperbacks, I lament that nothing in my life exhilarates me as much as unraveling intricate mysteries. When ominous clouds obscure the sun and lightning electrifies the atmosphere, I imagine my favorite literary detective rubbing her hands together, anticipating her latest case and saying, "Oh, what a dark and eerie afternoon." Then I remember that here in Halela, Florida, tropical thunderstorms occur daily, and mysteries are as rare as a dry day. As it begins to sprinkle, I sprint the last few blocks home. I reach the front porch just in time to avoid the deluge and, gasping for breath, inhale the mouth-watering aroma of ropa vieja wafting through the open windows. Abuela Maria is cooking my favorite meal from her native Cuba, a savory concoction of stewed beef and vegetables. When I open the screen door, a small cream-colored envelope tumbles to the ground. I bend to retrieve it, surprised to see "My Bella" scrawled ornately across the front. Lots of people call me Bella, but my Bella? Donning my detective's cap, I consider that this might be a prank and scan my surroundings surreptitiously, but spy no onlookers. Still, I step inside before carefully opening the envelope, revealing a single sheet of thick, old-fashioned stationery, the kind I've seen only in my abuela's antique desk. There on the creamy page, written in the same script, is the message, "I've finally found you." I have no clue what the letter means or who might have written it. No one handwrites letters anymore, except for my abuela. Even my mom texts or emails her friends. So who could have composed this, going to the trouble of writing a letter, in cursive no less, and hand delivering it? Perhaps Graciela, my best friend, is having fun at my expense, but I doubt it. She's rather humorless. I flush as I realize that someone may actually admire me from afar, and my mind immediately conjures an image of shy, bookish Mateo, who works at the library, where I see him frequently. Just recently he smiled at me, and I ponder whether he's working up the courage to talk to me, penning a letter as a more comfortable, more romantic means of expressing his feelings. I need additional clues to solve this mystery, so I conceal the note in my bag until I can study it secretly. The following day I hasten to the library with a singular objective: to collect a sample of Mateo's handwriting. But when Mateo catches me shadowing him, we stare at each other, embarrassment coloring our cheeks. Stammering and blushing, I rush home only to discover my next clue. I step inside to open the envelope and am again overwhelmed by the message on the page, which praises my lovely brown eyes and glorious long hair. While I do have long hair, no one has ever described it as glorious before. Just then my mother surprises me by coming home early from work. "What's that, Bella?" she inquires, inclining her head toward the note. Although I try stashing it in my bag, she deftly snatches it from my hands and reads the message. Frowning, she says, "I didn't know you had a boyfriend, Bella." "Me neither," I admit, before saying, "We'd better tell Abuela too. She loves drama." After I tell my tale, my mom says, "You do have lovely eyes, Bella, but I'm calling the police because mystery stalkers are not welcome here." "Don't be too hasty, dear," Abuela interrupts. "I never told you about Alejandro, did I?" I listen intently as Abuela recounts the story of the first love letter she ever received in her homeland of Cuba, a declaration of love from Alejandro, the sweetest, cutest boy she'd known. "I couldn't believe my luck when he wrote to me of all the girls in our neighborhood," she recalls with a melancholy smile. Before she could muster the courage to reply, however, her family abruptly fled Cuba. Those were difficult and dangerous times. We abandoned everything and started over. I was never able to say goodbye or let him know I cared for him too. With glistening eyes, she encourages Mom to give young love a chance to flourish, and I'm speechless when my mom reluctantly consents. "But you will alert me the minute you receive another note," she insists. The next morning, eager to provide my secret admirer an opportunity to deliver another letter, I venture out on an errand for Abuela. Upon returning, I find the latest message. "My dearest Bella, meet me at the park on 65th Street at 4 o'clock. Desperate to meet this unknown scribe, I beg my mom for permission to go. She finally relents on the condition that Abuela accompany me. We arrive early, hoping to spot Mateo, but encounter only an older gentleman dressed in a seersucker suit, bearing a bouquet of flowers. I look past him, but Abuela gasps and exclaims, "Alejandro, after all these years!" Then she turns to me and says softly, "I had forgotten he called me Bella. Beautiful." "I am so sorry, Bella. Are you very disappointed?" "Only in my detecting skills," I answer with a rueful smile before adding, "I'm glad he found you, Abuela." As Abuela reunites with a man she hasn't seen since childhood, I turn away to afford them privacy. My phone vibrates, and I expect my mom wants an update, but I see an unfamiliar number on the screen. My spirit soars as I read the message. "Hi, it's Mateo. Coming back to the library tomorrow, by any chance?" All right, if you are going to choose passage 2, Modern Love Letter, here is your prompt. How does the author of Modern Love Letter create surprise? Cite examples of how the author's choices in structuring the passage and the use of foreshadowing develop the element of surprise. Your response should again be one fully developed, complete paragraph and must include 1 to 2 quotes directly cited from the story. Once again, use the rubric to guide your work, and don't forget to reach out if you have any questions or need any assistance. Again, there are 2 possible passages that you could use for this Unit test, part 2 writing assignment. Passage 1 is Secret in Slovakia. Passage 2 is a modern love letter. Once you choose the passage, there is a specific prompt to go with each one. So read the directions and the passages again carefully, and don't forget to reach out if you have any questions as you begin writing. Thank you for listening and have a great day.